daughter is an actress, and one of the most compelling conversations that we've had over the course of the past couple of years has to do with this comment that she made to me, where she said that the magic in acting is finding the balance between rigor and ease. It was as if I was struck by a lightning bolt. Scarlett had exemplified an idea that had been percolating in the back of my mind about development in the fine arts very succinctly. Now, we can see this dynamic clearly in acting. If the actor is nervous, too tight, or anxious, that is telegraphed clearly through the performance. The performance will be forced, it will be stiff, it will be unnatural. And yet, contrary to what the general public thinks about drama and thinks about acting, if you approach your preparation as an actor with too much ease, your performance will in fact suffer, but it will suffer from the opposite direction. Now, this counterintuitive truth is the same thing in art, in the visual arts. Finding the balance between rigor and ease, or in simple English, between the easy and the hard, is key, not only to the object itself, to the painting, the piece of design, the sculpture, but to the development of the artist. We also find this dynamic in the paradox between the modest and the monumental. So in this video, we're going to take a look at three things. We're going to examine this idea of the balance between rigor and ease and see how these issues play out, in part by looking at a simple painting from my sketchbook that I started this video with, and how that's transformed from the modest to the relatively monumental and what happens in that process. And then we're going to take a look at selections from Cause drawing collection that were recently shown at the Drawing Center in Soho, and all of this with the end in mind of what can we learn from these issues. On the right, you see a simple painting from my sketchbook. The painting is small and easy, and on the left we see a time lapse of me redrawing this same painting on the iPad. Now, everything about the original painting was easy. Note the size. This painting was made in a value-neutral, emotional space. When I was painting this, I wasn't trying to achieve anything. I wasn't trying to do anything. Everything from the modest scale and size of the piece to the materials to its location inside of my sketchbook made the creation of the painting nearly effortless. In my work, I'm interested in seeing what happens when these simple and modest gestures are then translated. Now, in this case, first into screen prints and then into a relatively monumental painting. Now, here we see, as an example, Reeves BFK paper that is taped off. The tape will eventually be removed and then sprayed with spray paint as a background for that same image when it's translated to a screen print. The white key line that you see on the right side of your screen is the first plate in the screen printing process. So that is opaque white, screen printed over the top of the spray paint. This will help the figure pop off of this ground. So the original small painting we saw at the beginning of this video is systematically turned into a 7-color screen print. Here we see the original, or the resultant final print on the left-hand side of the screen. Note the large rolled painting that's in the background behind the table here. Now, if you want to collect this print, click below or click below the video or look over to your right. In the process of this small painting, the small painting is translated into a graphic. And so I usually print an edition of about 50. Now, I'm pointing this out because the image mutates, it changes over the screen print run intentionally. I showed earlier how the background is spray painted, so each of these prints is different, and it is intentionally, the piece is constructed to intentionally misregister, which introduces a lot of variation and slippage into the prints, and this is an intentional thing to see how that image changes. Now, the next step in the process is to take the screens from the print run and to insert them into a 36-foot long painting that I have been working on for a few years. Now, I keep this massive roll, or relatively massive roll of canvas rolled up in my studio when it's dry, and every few weeks I unroll the canvas on the floor of my studio. I then simply add or remove, I edit, I paint out or over anything that I don't think is working. Now, I combine screen printing, oil stick, acrylic, painting, and drawing all into the canvas. Over time, I just keep layering and adding and subtracting. And given the length of the roll of the canvas, I never actually see the complete composition, but I simply keep building up the surfaces, erasing, and trying to make a really dense painting through overpainting, editing. Now, in the entire process, I'm attempting to maintain the ease of production. I never actually get to see the whole thing, and that helps in this process. Now, this week I took the plates from the print that we just saw that began as that tiny painting in my sketchbook, and overprinted this figure into the painting itself. Now, the whole process brings to mind something that I was struck by when I saw the selected drawings from the Cause collection at the Drawing Center in Manhattan in November. Now, look at these Basil Wolverton paintings. Wolverton's an incredibly influential illustrator and artist, but note the size. The size is almost the same as what we see here, very, very small and modest in size. Now, I was at the show with some of my grad students and my wife, Darlene. And Darlene and I both looked at the first painting in this series at the same time. And she looked at me, and I could literally read her mind. I knew every word of what was about to come out of her mouth before she spoke them. Of course, she first commented on how beautiful the work was, but more importantly, she noted how modest the size and materials were, and yet how influential the work is. Now, over and over in this Cause drawing show, we saw this dynamic play out. The show was filled with small works that were seemingly directly made, and that also seemed effortless in their construction.
The catalog, from the way I see it, selection from the Cause collection at the Drawing Center in Soho. Almost every piece in the show is an example of what I'm talking about, but particularly this Raymond Pettibone stuff and this Tomo Gokita. This piece, these graphite drawings of Tomo Gokita, like this one right here, this is reproduced in the book, this is almost at the scale of the piece. So a lot of this stuff is really modest in scale and ambition.
Look at the beautiful silver and black painting on the screen here. I believe this is a Peter Saul work on paper, but note again how direct and effortless this work seems. And here again and again. Now, ultimately, when I think about the work of as an example, graphic designer Ed Fella or Kurt Schwitter's Mertz works, I'm absolutely struck by the modesty of the production methodology and the scale. So as an example, Ed Fella, over a 30-year period, I believe, produced a series of works that all were 11 by 17, all offset lithography in a single color, oftentimes black and white. And look at the ease and the seeming ease and directness of the construction of the object. I was at Art Basel Miami Beach a few years ago and saw one of the Kurt Schwitter's Merritt's works. And I had seen this piece in a book before, and I was absolutely blown away by the fact that the piece was, in real life, about the size of a postcard. It was about 4 by 6 inches and was just a simple piece of collage, and yet that piece had a massive, an absolutely massive effect culturally. My ultimate point here being that the discipline, as in acting, the rigor comes in tracing ideas, having a through line, tracing an ideas over time, and sticking with stable mediums. But it's my belief that the ease has to come in the direct manipulation of the object. When we are in the direct presence of the object, when we are making that thing, painting, drawing, designing, performing, that the work must be characterized in a way by a kind of directness, fluidity, and a lack of concern for destinations or for external pressures. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm very interested in hearing what you have to say. Until next time.